My mother-in-law passed away. For the past few years, my 45-year-old female biological mother, who is 25 years old, has been making an effort to reintegrate into my life. My grandmother reared me until her death, and because my biological mother was a violent and unfit mother, I was placed in foster care. She started telling relatives, with whom I hadn't spoken for a long time, that I had died in a vehicle accident approximately 5 years ago and that she needed money for the funeral. It wasn't until my grandfather called my adoptive parents in tears to inquire about what had transpired that he learned of this. As it happens, she vanished after extracting roughly $1,000 from him for her trip. I didn't communicate with her again until this year, when she contacted me to apologize and let me know that I was really ill. I spent a week seeing her and my siblings. She did, however, steal my car keys from my room while I was sleeping, drive my car to another estate, and charge my credit card with more than $500 during my stay. She snatched my keys and my wallet, which I had left locked in my car. She screamed at me when I questioned her about it, telling me that I was her son and that I owed her, that she should have aborted me so that I wouldn't have become such a conceited man, and that I was her mother and that I had to look after her. I lost my cool and told her that, after leaving me, my true mother, my grandmother, and her mother all passed away 20 years prior while high on crystal meth. I gathered my belongings and departed, not exchanging words with her since. I know I hurt her, which is why I feel so bad about what I said. Do I qualify as the D-ho? Not at home, but ho, let's get to the best remarks. You mentioned some hurtful things about yourself, and I know that 2 wrongs do not equal a right. You are the child, and she is the mother, so don't feel bad about it. Has she expressed regret to you for expressing her desire to fire you for stealing? Perhaps it's best to break off communication completely. My main regret is that I brought up my grandmother in this. I am aware that this is not what she would have wanted. No, my biological mother hasn't shown regret. Before I had to block her on Facebook, she sent me a few of offensive messages. Well done for defending yourself. You might want to report BOM to the police for her crimes, sue her in small claims court to get back whatever money she took from you, get the credit card fraud removed from your account by reporting it to the businesses, and get a restraining order against her. Not a day at all. She stole from you and lied to you. You owe her nothing, and you shouldn't communicate with her further. The only reason this woman is interested in a relationship with you is because she believes she can gain something from you. Avoid her. Get in touch with your bank and report fraud. Hugs. I completely concur with the original post, OP. You told the truth and, in my opinion, exercised extraordinary restraint in not expressing anything harsh in the given situation. Treat yourself with kindness and with self-care. If she truly was trying to atone for her past mistakes or find redemption, that would be one thing, but she is obviously not, and she hasn't even bothered to think about anyone but herself. All you did was give her the painful reality. The headline of the following tale is, Am I a jerk for keeping my man cave to accommodate my mother-in-law? My spouse and I tied the knot 4 years ago. She has 2 children from a prior relationship, ages 8 to 10, with full custody. Their father is not very involved in their lives. After my wife and her children moved into an apartment after we got married, we felt it would be easier for them to live in my house, which I inherited from my parents when they passed away approximately 10 years ago. It's been great that the kids now have their own rooms, we have a dog, and they can play in the yard. My wife's dad became ill and died about a year ago. Many of her family members have been affected, but her mum most of all. My wife mentioned a few months ago that she wanted her mother to live with us so she wouldn't be alone. That was extremely hesitant because her mother already has health problems of her own, and having another adult in the house alters the dynamics of the whole family. My wife and I had a lot of conversations before I ultimately agreed to the idea, but there are still obstacles to overcome, the main one being the lack of a spare bedroom for my mother-in-law. The idea to convert the basement into a mother-in-law apartment came from my wife. But during the past 10 years, I've transformed the basement into my man cave, complete with a large screen TV, bar, pool table, and poker table. I'm rather proud of the job I accomplished, as I did much of it myself. I informed my wife that since I've been working on that place for a long time, since before I ever knew her, giving it up is pretty much non-starter for me. My plan is to have my mother-in-law stay in the other bedroom while the children resume sharing a room. According to my wife, her children are accustomed to having their own place, and she won't make them give it up. Why is it acceptable for me to have to give up my space but not for everyone else? He questioned her. I told her that having my mother-in-law move in would not benefit me at all. My wife would get to spend more time with her mother, the kids would have their grandmother, and I would have to give up something for which I had fought so hard. To me, it doesn't sound like a particularly good deal. She told me I was being silly and stubborn, and she called me a selfish a-hole. She informed me that since we have a nice room that my mother-in-law could use, she would not force her children to give up their space because this is now also her home. I informed her that the basement is the one area of the house that I would never, ever want to be modified. We have been at odds for weeks about this, and neither of us is ready to give in. Our relationship is suffering as my wife becomes more and more antagonistic towards me. Do I simply have to swallow my pride and give up my space? Am I being a sucker for letting my mother-in-law come in with us when I already feel like I'm giving up a lot? Not at all. I'm a woman. To be honest, I wouldn't even consider my mother-in-law moving in if I were childless and lived in a home that I inherited from my parents. For years later, I would be accused of being selfish for not wanting to give up my craft room or anything else for his mother. Given that he is likely not making the mortgage payment, I would advise him to find a means to rent her a house nearby. How furious would I be? When you have had enough of your mother-in-law, where are you going to hide? You don't want to give up your space. The wife opposes her children sharing a room. The answer is clear. The mother-in-law shouldn't take up residence. This is a female too, and I'd be damned if I gave up so much of my family's house and was then labeled as selfish. I appreciate your concept. The mother-in-law ought to inherit assets from the deceased and be able to sell them. Why isn't her daughter looking into assisted living if her health is so poor? It sounds like she's attempting to use her mother-in-law's presence as legal cover to evict her. OP and retake his residence. I hope she's not a deed OP. No, my name is. The only one on the house. In the event of a divorce, I advise you to double-check with a lawyer. She appears self-centered enough to target your house. Not still. Every adult has the right to oppose the relocation of another person into your home, except extreme circumstances. Being alone doesn't make your mother-in-law qualify. Is moving the mother-in-law into a little apartment nearby not a compromise? She can still travel home at night and still make frequent visits in this manner. Although it stinks to be alone, the wife cannot make the other person agree to move in with her. Not Dale. Are you serious? OMG? You're an a-hole for marrying this woman, in my opinion. Woman, she wants everything, not just that you were raising her children and that she doesn't have to pay rent. She clearly doesn't respect you and what you've given her because she becomes aggressive and says, "This is my house too." Consider carefully if this is the kind of woman you really want in your life. Next article. Am I a bad person for not wanting to take care of my stepdaughter? My spouse is 33 years old, and I am 29. Our family is blended. My 5-year-old son from a prior relationship, and I get along well with my ex, who does a terrific job of providing for my son. He's a wonderful father. We have a 4-month-old daughter together with my husband's 3-year-old daughter. Since her addiction, my stepdaughter's mother has completely disappeared from her life. Therefore, she now resides with us. I became a stay-at-home mother to take care of my children when my daughter was born. We talked about how being pregnant adds to her, but because of my difficult postpartum experience, I have modified my original expectations. My spouse works to support the family financially. My husband thought that since I was a stay-at-home mom, I would look after all the children, including his daughter. I wholeheartedly agreed at the time. He claimed that he made it obvious to her motherless daughter when we were dating, and he wanted the person he married to assume all parenting responsibilities, particularly since her mother did not want her to demonstrate her worth of a mother's love. Since I had first met her when she was a year old, I had agreed to this. For the sake of clarity, I'll refer to my stepdaughter as my daughter yet use stepdaughter in this piece. My husband's family is willing to watch my stepdaughter, but I am so overwhelmed that I wanted to take care of my kids after having a baby. My spouse is upset with me, claiming he supports the family as a whole and always wanted to be a stay-at-home parent. When we dated, he claimed, I promised to look after my stepdaughter and treat her like my own. As I mentioned, things have changed. He argued with me, telling me that he supports my son, to which I replied that his father supports him greatly. My spouse became irate with me and told me that even though he had an amazing father, he still looks after and treats him like his own son. He said I hated his daughter and was a bad stepmother. His daughter is not hated by me. I simply can't handle 3 tiny children anymore. Note: this is not a permanent request. I have PPD and had a terrible birth. Because of this, my husband assists with our daughter more than usual. Is it wrong of me to want my stepdaughter to stay at home only while my husband is around? Edit. My family is far away from us. Even though my husband's family treats my son like their own, my ex is the only one who can assist with my son. My ex manages his own business and has flexible hours, so I felt it would be unjust to let his family care my son when I could give him more time. Many members of my husband's family are able to assist with the stepdaughter. Let's get the comments started. Are you trolling? You truly are the a-hole. OP, it's ridiculous that you even needed to post this to verify whether it's genuine. Attain assistance. You require emergency medical attention. This isn't acceptable. You're not doing well. The a-hole is you. Yes, and it seems that the husband may not even be aware of it. I'm hoping he notices and finds someone to care the kids while she tries to get things under control. The a-hole is you. Marrying a man with a child and no other parents in the area does not give you the freedom to choose how you will raise your children. You are stating unequivocally that you do not consider your stepdaughter to be your daughter. Yes, I do. I'm just so overwhelmed that I need to give the infant more attention. With my son, I also need assistance. Then, the solution is that you should get treatment rather than telling your husband that you will only look after your children. She's majoring in kids. The a-hole is you. If this leads to your divorce, don't be startled. I wish to look after my children. Breaking news. According to your original arrangement, she is one of your children. You don't have to use your 3 small children as an excuse to take a part-time job. The final tale is this one. Am I a bad person for supporting bullying? I teach in a high school. I have a 16-year-old class that I teach now. And the class that this will be affecting is this one. I assigned them a group project 2 months ago. 2 pupils showed up. 16-year-old female Fate and 16-year-old male Ned. Together, they produced a quite decent report, but towards the project's conclusion, Fate informed me that Ned had not contributed anything. I now know that Ned is popular, which is important, but he is also incredibly devoted and industrious. I was thus shocked to learn that he had taken this action. When I questioned whether she had any proof, she replied that she could receive it tomorrow even though it wasn't compiled. When she returns, she shows me the updated history on her file. Discovered later that, in order to make it appear as though she had written everything, she had copied everything and then erased it. When it was all written down the previous evening, I checked to be sure I had believed her at first. Suspicious, I inquired if she had any other information. She showed me the texts, which were essentially her attempts to schedule time to work on it, but he abruptly stopped interacting with her. I brought it up to Ned. He told me, looking shocked, that 2 days prior he had been shut out of a Google document. When he revealed the actual communications to me, it was just the 2 of them discussing the project and organizing the work. Given the obviousness of what Fate had done, I went back to face her. I insisted on seeing the entire history of edits. Edits revealed that Ed had completed about 70% of the job, making the burden actually closer to 70% to 30%. When I questioned her about why she had done this, she explained that she believed she would receive a better mark if he hadn't done any work. I was furious because, had I trusted her, Ned would have received a 0, and his GPA would have plummeted. I brought this up with the principal, and she was suspended from school for 4 days. Ned wants to pursue a vocation that requires an absurdly high GPA, I should also mention. Was shared with the class, so now they all essentially despise Fate. Although she wasn't particularly popular previously, she was now intentionally avoided talks during social events held outside of school. She was left out. She is currently crying every day because of it. I'm sorry for her, but she truly deserves the repercussions because she did this. Her mother now came to the school and yelled at me, claiming that the bullying and social exclusion are causing her to have mental breakdowns on a daily basis. She's saying, I have to address the class and insist that everyone incorporate fate or else. In addition, she wants Ned to pay for telling everyone. Even though I'm sorry for her, I don't think it's right to penalize her because there wasn't a major conflict involving business. All that was needed was some group work and a suture. I never instructed Ned to keep it a secret. Not only is it polite to refrain from doing something of this nature, but fate could have destroyed his life entirely. Not that we are in the US. Our high school grades are important because they determine these youngsters' admission to college courses, which ultimately shape their lives. Not Dale. Firstly, I don't see anything in this case that suggests you were supporting bullying. If anything, all you were doing was pushing for the acceptance of the truth. That greedy girl was ready to destroy someone else's hard work and grades in order to further her own interests. It misled a teacher and produced fictitious proof to support her erroneous assertion. Ned was also quite entitled to tell the truth to anybody asked to hear it. If fate was prepared to harm him in that way, what would prevent her from harming other pupils each time she felt like skipping her share of the assignment? The students should be aware of the potential risks if they are matched with her. Although she and the other students did not create the scenario, I do not condone bullying in any form. She didn't even express regret or shame for what she had done. I mean, going to a formal apology would be the least she could do if she really wanted things to improve. If she doesn't act the part, how else is she supposed to be perceived as a nice person by others or for the situation to change? Since there is little justice, I would suggest you to only caution the students not to push things too far. This in full. Students, particularly those in high school, are aware of the negative effects of lying and cheating, particularly when it involves someone they adore. If the situation is really so severe, her mother ought to think about moving her. She is really barking up the wrong tree. Not Dale. Go home, play dumb games, and take home dumb rewards. However, keep an eye out for fate in case she experiences any life-related issues following her ordeal. I hope things get better for her. If not, she will have to live it. She needs to start over at a different school. Inform the principal of her mother's requirements. Not a very bright fate. Ned shouldn't have stored messages on his own phone, in my opinion. Not Dale. When you challenged Ned with the information fate had provided, he denied it. Instead of turning on her, you looked into her allegations. Her peers are now treating her as a result of her attempt to manipulate you and her happiness at Ned's illness. I'm not sure how you can make a group of 16-year-olds participate in someone else's social activities against their will. Sadly for her, it's a case of win foolish things by playing foolish games. Probably, I would bring this up with the leadership team at school. Her mother has now complained about her after she effectively attempted to cheat on an assignment. If nothing improves, her mother will probably take the situation to court herself. For the sake of informing the school, it is therefore best to arrive early. Having said all of that, one selfish act shouldn't have to force her to experience social marginalization for the remainder of her school career. Is there a school psychologist that could offer some advice on how to support her in reintegrating into the group?